I didn't really do very well at school, didn't pass my exams and didn't go to university like a lot of my classmates. And we just enjoyed life. That went on for about 5 or 6 years with just one kind of dead-end job after another, living with my parents, sponging off my parents, basically, getting more and more anxious about what I was going to do with my life. So there was a point where I realized if I don't change this, then I'm going to still be here. But I wanted more. I felt like there's more. I was listening to this tape that was really powerful for me at the time, because it was talking about your old conditioning. You soak up everything that's going on around you, everything. And he talks a lot about this process of environmental conditioning and enculturation and becoming a product of your environment. And then he said, and this was the bit that really stuck with me, he said, you're not responsible for your old conditioning because you couldn't do anything about it. You didn't have the mental faculties to be able to resist any of that enculturation. So you're not responsible for it. But you are responsible for changing it if you want to change it moving forward.
Have you ever wondered what shapes who you become and how much of it did you actually choose? In this episode, I sit down with Roddy Galbraith for a deeply honest conversation about the experiences and beliefs that influence the way he leads, grows, and shows up for others. He shares the moments that caused him to question what truly matters and rethink what success really means to him. Let's dive in. Hi, Roddy. Welcome.
Hey, Rena. So good to be here. Thanks for having me. I've been looking forward to this since you asked me. This is going to be fun. We're going to have fun.
I can't tell you how excited I am and how grateful I am that you said yes. I was so hesitant asking you. It took me a while. It took me a while to ask you.
Step forward bravely into the fear, Rena.
First of all, again, thank you so much for saying yes and for being here. So how we do it here is I don't make an introduction of my guests. I invite my guests to tell us a little bit about themselves. So tell us a little bit about you, what you do, and then we'll take it from there.
Yeah, so I suppose going back to the beginning, I didn't really do very well at school, didn't pass my exams and didn't go to university like a lot of my classmates. But there was a small group of us that were left behind and we just enjoyed life. Drinking is a big part of English culture, particularly when you're young. And so we would go to the pub and get into adventures. That went on for about 5 or 6 years with just one kind of dead-end job after another, living with my parents, sponging off my parents, basically, getting more and more anxious about what I was going to do with my life and stressing my parents out no end. Eventually, through a friend, got a job working in the city, which was a lucky break. I don't know what I'd have done if I hadn't been able to do that. And then was playing catch-up for a long period of time, working really hard. And ended up working in the financial sector for 15 plus years and running big teams for some of the biggest organizations, biggest banking organizations in the world. And then decided I wanted to do something different and decided the thing I most liked about my job was working with people and teaching communication skills, and us all, not really teaching, but creating an environment where we could all learn together to develop our communication skills. And I loved personal growth. And so I left that role and started as a professional speaker about 20 years ago. And so I've been on that kind of journey ever since. I'm an entrepreneur now. We moved here to America about 9 years ago, almost exactly 9 years ago. Gosh, that's gone quickly. I married the love of my life, Susan, my wife, and we've got 4 perfect kids and just living the entrepreneurial dream. It's taken me, I'm 57 now, 57 and a half. And it's taken me at least 50 years to work out what I want to be when I grow up. But now, the last few years, like the last 5 years, I'm going to say, I feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. No doubt it will change, but yeah, that's it. You're up to date.
I'm so surprised that you say it's just the last 5 years because your success started revealing itself much before that. I followed you for a long time, specifically from 2018. I knew that you were successful then. And as you said, if someone were to ask me about you, tell us a little bit about Roddy, the first thought that comes to my mind is that it's a very full life, personally and professionally. You've created several multi-million dollar businesses. You've mentored and coached so many people, thousands. That kind of life doesn't just happen on its own. It requires thought, it requires intentionality. There are many accolades I can think of: speaker, coach, mentor, entrepreneur, and all those are true. But for me, from a very personal level, if I have to name that one quality of yours, it is the other centeredness that you have, your ability to connect, to listen, to really experience another person's whatever that person is going through, and to step into that experience. It's of another level. I don't know of another person that possesses that level of genuine care, genuine interest in somebody else's, whatever they are going through, just listening to their story. It amazes me every time. You've had several conversations, and it amazes me every time. More of a personality trait, and I'm sure it has played a major role in your success. But if we were to peel back a few more layers and go a little deeper, start talking about mindsets or belief systems, if I were to ask you that what would be that one thing that you would attribute your success, that the life that you have, however long it has taken, but what would that one thing be?
Ooh. Well, first of all, I want to differentiate between success and feeling like I'm living the life I'm supposed to live, which I think of using John Maxwell's words, significance. He talks about success is something that comes to you for you, but significance is something that comes through you for others. And I think that's really powerful. And I think that's a big part of it, although I didn't realize that at the time. So I was successful when I was working in the city. By most people's standards, they would have said, great, you got a big team, you paid well, your pension, share options, all the things that you get when you work for big banking organizations. But my time wasn't my own, and I couldn't choose. I had a great deal of flexibility, but I couldn't choose what I wanted to do all the time. I could work from home once or twice a week, but I had to commute into London, which is about 80 minutes each way. Couldn't go traveling for 6 months, couldn't go traveling for 3 months. There was some constraints. That was what made me think. Like one day on the train into London, I remember, and I would always sit in the same seat. Anyone that's a commuter, I'm sure, can relate to. You go to the same stop, you stand by where the doors open, you try and get on, and then you want to get a good seat. And so I was in the same seat. And there was an advert playing years ago in England, which was about I think like Singapore or Japanese subway, where the police would push people onto the things, and there's the advert was these penguins rushing into an office building, and the penguins were like going up the stairs and into the offices, and the chant as they were going was chop chop busy busy work work penguin, chop chop busy busy work work penguin, as they're like shuffling into the building and up into their cube like sardines packed in from the tube. And I'm sitting on the train commuting in, and I'm thinking, we are all penguins on this train. And that's what made me think, like, something's got to change, and if I don't change it, I'm going to be a penguin until I'm 55 or whatever. Like, this was years ago, obviously. Now I think 55 still seems young. That seems like very young, actually. So there's a point where I realized if I don't change this, then I'm going to still be here. And actually, Susan and I went back years later to England, long after we moved here. We got the train into London. I happened to go on one of those commuter trains as we were going, and some of the same people were sitting on the same seats as when I was commuting years before. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I wanted more. I felt like there's more. Training people, leading people, and the communication bit that really resonated with me. So that was what I'd talk about changing. And then when you're an entrepreneur, when it's your own business, there's a different, like John says, no one washes a rental car because there's no ownership of it. So you don't look after it. You don't treat it the same. When it's your own business, then you, I think, embrace it very differently. Even though I was a great employee and always left everywhere on great terms, people would offer me double the salary to stay, and I would go back and consult, and never left anywhere after 20. All the jobs before 25, they would have thrown bricks at me if I'd gone back. But after that, I'd left on good terms, and always, like, my relationships with previous companies was an asset. So it wasn't that I was cheating the system, I just didn't feel the same way about it. So when I have my own business as an entrepreneur, as you know, and then coaching so many people, I'm on the Zoom with people pretty much all day, every day, like 6 or 7 days a week for hours and hours on end. And it would seem like that would be work, but it doesn't feel like it because you're talking to human beings and the stories that people bring. I mean, you as an example, some of the conversations we've had about your life, people bring the big stories from their life that they want to work on for their keynote or for their TED talk or for their presentation. And so it's an honor to have that opportunity to discuss it with them and to play some small role in trying to facilitate them helping other people with their story. So I want to make that distinction, first of all. As regard to one point, I think you said, what was the word? What's one thing that makes the difference? What's one thing that makes
What would be, if you have to peel back, go to and talk about mindsets or beliefs, if you were to pick up one thing?
Yeah. So my wife tells me that I have a gift for seeing complicated things and making sense of it and turning it into a system. And John Maxwell said the same thing as well when I looked at his speaking and then put together a system for him to say, look at this. Look, do you see how you do this? He's like, oh my goodness, I've never thought of it like that before. You have a gift for this. But it's really not a gift. It's a curse of stubbornness. And I'm convinced of this. And Susan says, oh, you're just saying that's false modesty. I'm like, I'm not just saying that. This is it. I am so passionate about understanding things and so stubborn that I spend way more time on it than anyone would realize to try and make sense of things. I mean, way more than anyone would realize. And then when it's like, oh, look at this, and gradually, and it would happen for anyone if anyone would stick at it long enough to be able to see these pieces fit together like this and how you can make sense of it. And then it seems simple at the end, but it's the work that goes into it to constantly think about it, try different ways to understand, like draw it, put it on a whiteboard, rub it all out, go home. This is never going to work. Come back early in the morning. I've had an idea. And then through that process, it seems like I can take something complicated and put it together, like a keynote, for example, into something that people can understand. And so I think it was Edison that said that genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. I really resonate with that. And I think you've got to do a big chunk of the 99% of the perspiration first before the 1% of inspiration comes along. And so I think that really helped me. And a big part of that was because I wasted so much of my early life just drinking and getting to adventures with my friends. And I worked so hard playing catch up. I could see that when I really stick at something like way longer than most people would, then I get better at it and I can see it differently. And so that's really helped.
But isn't that what most, I would say, geniuses do? It's that perseverance. If they don't stick with it and they don't push it, that innovation never happens.
Yeah, I think so. So that's why I'm saying, but it's not like a gift of, oh, you can see things clearly like Susan sees it as, because she just sees the end result. It's a persistence. I can't give up. I really want to, I want it to work. I want to understand it. I want to make sense of it.
The distinction is that it doesn't drain you.
I'm inspired.
It energizes you.
Yeah,
it energizes you. If it drained you, you would give it up. But it excites you. That process excites you. That's why you can hold on for hours to do it.
But it's also a bit of a odd, perhaps intellectual vanity about wanting to understand how everything works. So it goes off in all kinds of different directions. Today, when I got here this morning, I woke up at 10 to 5. I've got to the office at like 5:05 or something. And I was just looking to see if there's any changes with the news or the different various wars going on while I was drinking my black coffee. And then I saw this thing about solar energy, and I must have spent an hour and a half watching different clips on how you can get the things, have a generator, and how you can have plug-in solar and where it works and where it doesn't, and how many watts you need and how much bigger battery. I'm never going to do that, but it's just I want to understand how it works. I had so many things that I should be working on. But.
Yeah, so that was my question. That is it for everything, or is it there are some?
Yeah.
Is it?
Well, some things more than others. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Just before we started, and there was some technical issue, and you asked me and I was lost. I can look into it, but I know that I don't have the patience to sit with it for hours at an end. I'll do enough that it'll get me through, but beyond that, I'll give it up. But there are others that I can sit for hours and I will
Right.
not give up till I have a solution. It consumes me.
Yeah, that's true for me as well. There's some things that I'm just couldn't care less about, but not many. But I wonder if there's a point of insecurity where I don't want someone to say to me, how do you do that? And I don't know. So it's like maybe this ridiculous obligation that my dad knew everything, actually. So I don't know, maybe somehow subliminally I'm supposed to take that on. I don't know. But it's cumbersome at times, especially when there's other things that I should be doing.
Yes, that persistence, that level of persistence that you have, something that you love doing, yes, the ownership that you feel, the responsibility you feel, and your genuine interest in other people, it still doesn't define. So let me ask you in another way. So you did say that you lived a life. It was a very carefree life, which probably not very responsible at times.
Irresponsible.
Yeah,
Irresponsible.
irresponsible. And even when you were successful, that fulfillment was not there. That this is not really what I want to do. I'm good at it, but I'm not happy doing it.
I think it was competition. I wanted to have the biggest house out of my friends. I was quite driven, playing catch up, and I always liked property. I still love property. So I wanted to have a house. And so I would buy a house and then do it up, sell it, get another one. So 5 or 6 houses on then. And we still have our house back in England now, which is really lovely in the countryside. But that was an obsessive goal for 20 years or something.
But you did intentionally change certain things about yourself. It was whether
Yes.
it was a mindset shift, or you can call it a belief system shift, conditioning,
Huge changes. Yeah.
whether how you were
Yeah.
conditioned to do certain things, and intentionally unlearned those and recreated a new life for yourself. Can you talk a little bit about how did you realize that needs to shift?
Yeah, that was very obvious. You know, like they say, an alcoholic's path is real clear because you're either going to deal with this or you're going to end up in jail. It was really, really clear. My path became really clear because I struggled with panic attacks, which became unmanageable. And it wasn't really acceptable to me to have this kind of weakness as I saw it. And so I just would block it out or ignore it or have various different hundreds of different coping mechanisms to be able to avoid facing it. But eventually, and because I was drinking a lot with my friends and wasting so many years and then getting more and more imposter syndrome when I first got a job and then getting promoted into a leadership role because I was working so hard, and then even though it was technical and then having a leadership role, the imposter syndrome got worse. There came a point where I knew that this was significantly going to hold me back. If I didn't do something about it, then it was going to really hold me back. I came back drunk one night. There was a Sunday night, and I wrote myself a letter while I was drunk. We'd come back from the pub, and I'm saying, right, I'm not just because of that. And I can't remember exactly what it was, but I was partly blaming my parents. I've got to deal with this, and left it there so I could read it the next morning when I got up. And so the next morning I read it, and I was like, oh, you know how you go, oh, after you've been drinking. And so I was like, and then I phoned up work and said, oh, I'm really sick. I can't come in. I took 2 days off and I sat down when the house was empty and Yahoo was the search engine. And I typed panic attacks into the search engine. And then like my finger was hovering over the enter key and I really didn't want to press it because it would mean I'm acknowledging this thing and then I'm going to have to deal with it. I didn't want it in my mind, but eventually I pressed it. Scrolls and scrolls and scrolls of different resources on dealing with a panic attack and social anxiety and all kinds of different things that I never even knew existed. I never knew there was a personal growth world until this popped up. And my first book was Lucinda Bassett's From Panic to Power, which is still on my bookshelf out there today. And so I read that, bought so many books from Amazon. Eventually, then Nightingale Conan, yeah, bought like countless of their programs. And now I've gone the other way now. I'm very, very selective. But initially, it was like a kid in a sweet shop, all of these different things. And so that was huge for me to acknowledge that and then tell some people about it. I didn't tell many people at first. And then begin that whole process. Everything said, start with your doctor, go to the doctor, sit down with your doctor. So I went to the doctor, told him. He said, I'm going to give you some beta blockers to help calm you down. Propranolol was the drugs that he gave me. And he said, and we'll get you in. This is on the National Health Service, so it's free. Get you in for psychotherapy because that will probably help. And the wait was like 3 or 4 or 5 months or something like that to get in. And so I went and told, I was friends with the HR lady at the company that I was working for, Swedish Pension Fund company. And she said, oh, you can do that on private medical. And so then I had the best psychiatrist and psychotherapist through the company that they paid for a long, long time. I was doing that. And I really enjoyed the process of working on myself. It was quite self-indulgent, I suppose. I can remember the psychiatrist saying, you seem to be dealing with this very well. And I'm like, well, I feel like this is good. This is constructive. You're going to help me. And then he said, you'll get over this. You'll get over this. And I didn't believe him when he said it, but he said, you'll get over this. And then gradually that whole change led to me studying hypnosis, hypnotherapy, cognitive behavioral hypnotherapy, years and years on the mind, dabbled in various different psychology courses. And yeah, that was the beginning of a 35-year love affair with personal growth, which still to this day, I really love. And all of that, ironically, or maybe not ironically, all of me dealing with myself and going through everything and understanding the mind and dealing with phobias and everything for years and years and years helped me help people with the fear of speaking, which so many people struggle with in various different degrees. So it kind of, everything that I went through really worked out for the best for me in what I'm doing now. But more than anything, I think I'm so grateful, genuinely grateful for going through that, because I wasn't, looking back, a very nice person. I was greedy and selfish, and we were all just having fun. And being forced to work on myself, like long and hard, year after year, has been great for my, what's it called?
Personal development or self-development.
Yeah, just to be comfortable with myself, to be like more comfortable in my own skin, to be happy and far less critical. So yeah, I'm a much nicer person now because of all of that. And so I'm grateful. Imagine if I was still a selfish, greedy idiot.
I love that. I absolutely I can't imagine a Roddy like that. So, but I remember a conversation that you told me you had, that there was, I think, was it Bob Proctor, that something that you listened, you heard him teach about conditioning? And
oh yeah, he does a load of stuff on the mind, or he has had loads of
really impacted you and your how your thinking changed. Talk a little bit more. I don't know the whole story, but I would love to dig into it.
Yes. So there's a number of things that really stood out that for me, and I'm not, was business partners with Bob Proctor for a number of years after this, but I was listening to this tape that was really powerful for me at the time, because it was talking about your old conditioning. He talks about, like, the example of how you learn a language. If you're born in an English-speaking home, you soak up English. If you're born in a French home, you speak French. If you can have French parents, but if you grow up in English, you're going to learn English. So it's not your genes, it's what's going on around you. And so there's nothing you can do about it. You soak it up. You're helpless to stop that process. It just happens naturally. And you as a child can't choose a different language. You can't say Mandarin would be much better for me. I'm not going to learn this. I'm going to choose to do this. You soak up whatever language is going on around you. But language is not the only thing you soak up. You soak up everything that's going on around you, everything, your dreams from your parents, your hopes of your parents, the heroes for our community, people like us, we don't like them, and people like us, we really like them, and we're pro-vaccine and we're anti-vaccine and we're royalists and we hate the monarchy, and you name it. Everything we soak up, all of those things. And he talks a lot about this process of environmental conditioning and enculturation and becoming a product of your environment. And then he said, and this was the bit that really stuck with me, he said, you're not responsible for your old conditioning because you couldn't do anything about it. You didn't have the mental faculties to be able to resist any of that enculturation. So you're not responsible for it. But you are responsible for changing it if you want to change it moving forwards. And it's like, oh my goodness. Because he said, sometimes things will happen and you'll say to yourself, that's just me, that's just me. And that's what I would say to myself, that's exactly what, and it really resonated with me. I say that all the time, that's just me, that's just me. He says, it's not just you, that's just you to this point. If you want to be something different, you can do that. It's a process that you need to go through. And that was like the gates of hope are swinging wide open. It didn't matter how much work it was possible for the first time in my mind. And after this was Dennis Waitley, who some people probably still remember. Dennis Waitley, I think he was the psychologist or coach for the Olympic team in the 80s or something. He had a book called Flexitics, I think it was called Flexitics. And I read it in Cornwall when I was on vacation with my parents. And I was walking the dogs through the woods. And I was so, I can do anything I want. The difference between that's just me, things don't work out for me, to you can become something different was so freeing. I can't even tell you. It completely changed my life. When people, is it possible that a book or just reading or listening to something can really change your life? It totally changed my life because I could see a different future, which I couldn't see before that. I didn't think it was possible. It was so empowering.
Wow. So when that realization happened, what were some intentional steps you took to building the life that you have?
So there's been like a lot of those things. Like first thing, I needed to get my finances in order. I needed to get good at interviewing. I decided was what I was going to focus on, which is where the communication started affecting me. Getting good at interviewing, changing jobs, getting money, paying off some of my debts. At one point, I had 3 different debt collectors knocking on the door, trying to collect money. It weren't even big debts, but just things I hadn't paid. So I had to pay those, clear my credit cards and start then buy a house and then get organized, the car, be a grown up. But then things like I'd always been able to go to the gym. I always was motivated to train. But when you get injured, then there's a different kind of perseverance that's necessary because it's so disappointing. You can't train for 6 weeks or 8 weeks. Then it'd be difficult to get back to it. Giving up drinking, which was much more recent, was another one of those things that I needed to change. Being healthy, and it's through experiences, which we probably haven't got time to go into, but our daughter had a cardiac arrest and she was dead on the floor for 8 minutes when Susan and I came back. And that was a profoundly spiritual experience for me while they were working on her. And eventually, like at least 8 minutes later, she comes back. And then they put her in the ambulance and airlift her to Miami Hospital. She's in a coma for 3 days. And then she comes back and no brain damage. Like just, I had an intense spiritual experience one morning driving back from ICU, which completely changed my life again. And that's something that I've needed to focus on. So I think facing fears in different shapes and sizes has been one of the things that I've got better at. Whereas before I would drink and hide, self-medicate, hide from life. Part of this episode with Eliza was I feel like I need to go to be in ICU with her. And so it was like a 2-hour drive there. She was in a coma. She wasn't going to wake up. They thought they would bring her out like 3 days later. And so I thought, well, I'll go and sit there. And Susan said, she's going to be asleep. We haven't had any sleep. Just stay here. We'll go in the morning. I said, I feel I need to be there tonight. And so I thought, well, if I'm going to go, I might as well take those beers in the fridge because I'm just going to sit there in ICU. I might as well, there's 3 beers left. I might as well take those and drink them. I told Susan I was going to do this. And then as I thought about it, I'm thinking, Eliza is either going to die or she's going to live. But whichever way it goes, I should be in the room, in the moment with my daughter, not like trying to hide from the moment by drinking. And it was a very powerful moment for me where I thought, I'm not taking them. And it felt quite scary to just to be me in the situation, especially a situation like that. And the next morning I got in the car at 5 o'clock and I'm like, driving back, and I was surprised and disappointed that nothing happened. I felt like something was going to happen, and that's why I was being called to be there. And then just I had this, I can't even make sense of it. Just such a bizarre experience driving where I'm hyperventilating and I'm swerving across the road and the cars are beeping, they're driving past and I can't control. And all of these images about me and Susan and Eliza and the future are all like flashing through my mind really like crazily. And eventually I said, please stop. I'm going to crash. Because it was so intense. And then as soon as I said, please stop, it stopped. And I'm like, what in the world was that? And so I felt it was an important experience, but I haven't drunk again since. That was like over 3 years ago. I didn't decide to give up drinking. After drinking from 15, like every day, my whole life, way more than I should, it just didn't seem important anymore. It didn't seem like, and I didn't like, Susan had given up drinking when we went to Israel about 2-3 years before this. And so I thought about drinking. I tried to go out drinking in the past, but I just stopped because it wasn't important. And I didn't want to hide from, I didn't want to, yeah, you know what I mean? When you're drinking to not be in the moment rather than be in the moment, to escape. Or like, escapism.
It's a coping mechanism. It's
Yeah,
it helps you ease, it lightens you up, it dilutes the experience.
Yeah. And I think I was a good drunk because I was like happy and joyful and hey, and then I was insecure when I was hungover. And so there was a big difference. So it was very, very interesting to me.
I'm so glad you brought up Eliza. I was in two minds whether to bring her, talk about her. You've mentioned the cardiac arrest, but just tell us, because our audience doesn't know.
Yes. Well, yeah. So we got 4 kids, and they're all the 4 best things that have ever happened to us. They're 2 boys and 2 girls. Amelie's the eldest. She's now 20. Eliza was born about 18 months after Amelie. And she has it took us a while to work this out, but she has a rare chromosome abnormality, which is so rare. There was no one at the time they could find with the same chromosome abnormality. She's got no corpus callosum, so the 2 halves of her brain are not connected like they are for most people. She's got 1 kidney that's lower. She had holes in her heart, leaky valve. So there's all these different kind of things. And so we had to go through this whole process of adapting, really. That's the thing. Like a child like Eliza is amazing, but you don't realize that at first because you have this idea of, I probably shouldn't say this out loud. I'm not sure I've ever said this on anything like this before, but I was into visualizing. So I would visualize. So I visualized a baby when Susan was pregnant with Eliza. I visualized a brown-haired, brown-eyed baby like Susan, because she's got brown eyes and brown hair. Amelie's paler, but she's beautiful in her way. And so I thought it'd be good for us to have two different girls. I don't know why I thought it was going to be a girl, which it was, obviously. And so brown eyes and brown hair was what I'd visualized. And then when she was born, we've realized she had this rare chromosome abnormality. Maybe she was never going to be able to talk. Maybe she was never going to be able to crawl, to walk. And they said her life expectancy is likely to be affected as well. She's probably not going to live a full life. We don't know how affected that's going to be. We're going to have to wait and see. I felt so guilty that I hadn't visualized any of those, the opposite of any of those things. I just focused on, I hope she's got brown hair. We didn't know it was going to be a girl. I hope she's got brown hair and she's got brown eyes like Susan. It was like what I was visualizing. And I remember we went to the pub, Susan and I. In England, the Labour government we're in, which is more like the Liberals, the Democrats, not the Republicans. And so they would pay for people with children like Eliza. You would get 2 people would turn up and they would babysit for you, and you could go out for 3 hours and you'd have an allowance to go to have some respite. It was really good. So every week we'd have date night, and we went to this pub, and I can remember sitting at the table and I was telling Susan about this visualizing and how guilty I felt that I didn't visualize being healthy. And so there's a period of adjustment where you get used to a very different parenting experience, very different. But it's not inferior. In fact, it's superior in some ways. It's just, she's amazing, and she's different we spend so much time with her all the time, and she's very challenging, but she's also so sweet. Many times, like putting her to bed last night, she'll scream she doesn't want to go to bed, she wants to watch the end of the film. She doesn't need to go to the toilet. She learns all kinds of language that she calls you as well. She might have Tourette's syndrome, we think, as well now, because she like flips out, I'm not doing it, I'm dead and gone and finished, and no, it's dead, that's rubbish. And then eventually she'll sit on the toilet and then, I'm not putting my nappy on, and I'm putting it. And 3 minutes later, she'll be in bed and she's like, sing the songs. And her face is like full of delight as we have to go through this whole routine. I've got to dance to all these different songs, and Susan has to dance. And then she throws me over 4 times before I can go. Then the dogs come in and say goodnight to her. So this whole thing, she could not be more delighted in bed. It's what makes it all possible to deal with all of how challenging she is, because it's multiple times a day, all of those things. So it's wonderful, but that's a period of adjustment. People don't realize how wonderful a child like Eliza is.
Oh yeah, I've met her a few times, and she is an absolute delight. Just so wonderful to spend time with her. And
yeah, And
now
challenging.
yeah, the first couple of times she didn't really speak to me, but now this time she was talking and showing me her. I think there was a doll that she had, and
Oh yeah.
I'm forgetting. Susan, don't tell me the name of that particular.
And she has a laptop at the moment, which she likes to play songs.
This is a little doll kind of.
Oh, is it a boat? It might have been a little boat, which you can't get anymore.
Yes,
and so it's unacceptable when they break. So we've learned how to solder the bits back together again.
Oh, yeah.
So you can only get them in England on eBay when they break. So we have people looking out for them. She cannot move on when it's broken. You have to fix it. Like
I know. I was supposed to cradle it and put it to bed. So I did all that. But she is so beautiful. But tell me, I want to dig a little deeper about that guilt you experienced. I'm sure when the doctors must have broken that news to you initially about her diagnosis to you and Susan, what was your experience at that time?
So it was a period of, and it coincided with a lot of my personal growth journey and a lot of like positive thinking. I've changed the way I think about a lot of those things, as we all do, I think, over time. But I was very much like positive thinking, it's all going to work out for the best. And we were going back for all these different, it was over a period of weeks where they're doing the different assessments. And then Dr. Kumar said one of her ears are a little lower than her eyebrows, which is a sign maybe that might be some kind of genetic disorder. So we should do a test. And then that came back that she did have this rare chromosome abnormality. But there was one point in here where, no, before that, he said, this is, you have to have a sense of humor for a lot of these things. We were just leaving this appointment and he had a mobile scanning thing. And we're in the corridor, just like walking out of his office and this thing. He says, do you mind if we just quickly scan ahead? And we're like, fine. And so he like moves it over there and he's talking to his colleague, blah, 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 corpus callosum. He says, well, look, I don't want to alarm you, but there might be part of her brain missing. Anyway, I'll see you next. And so we are back in the car and we're driving and like, did he say, I don't want to alarm you, but there might be part of her brain? We were laughing about it because it was so bizarre. But then we had to go back for a full MRI. We didn't know at this point, but this is a very odd situation. Then we get there and they say, right, so we can't sedate her because she's too young. She's only 3 months old at this point. One of you's going to need to go in. Who's going to go in? And Susan said, oh, I'll go in. So they put the leather apron on and they said, there's no chance you could be pregnant. And she says, oh, yeah, I might be. And I'm like, what? Like, really? She had to take Leon. Yeah. So she had to take the apron off and I had to put it on. And then, so I went and sat with her. Anyway, so I'm there in the room and she actually was really good. She wasn't sedated, but she was just still enough for them to do all their scanning. And it's like 20 minutes. And so I'm, well, what am I going to do? And so I closed my eyes and wasn't really I would say I was probably spiritually inclined, but not really a person of faith. But I'm just like, how can I help you, darling? How can I help you? What can I do to help you? My eyes shut while the machine's going, and she's going in and out. And immediately I said this, I had this, and it wasn't Eliza talking to me, but it was like Eliza talking to me, but it wasn't a voice, but it was, you don't need to help me, Dad. I'm fine. I'm fine. But it wasn't a fine as in like, don't worry about the scan. All my brain's there. It's like, I'm perfect anyway. And I had this sense that all we could do was do our best and that would be enough. That would be enough. And I had a real peace about Eliza after this. Wow. And Susan and I would talk about it. And it took Susan years to get to the same kind of place where she could accept. And when we were joyful, I mean, you imagine like my dad would look at her, and my dad was a very lovely, kind man, but just different kind of generation, not close to everything that's going on. And he was looking at Eliza and then said to Susan, there's just nothing there, is there? Because that's like his experience. And then one of our neighbors, great friend who lived next door to us, and we would like have dinner parties with one of my friend's parents, actually the dad. He was having a drunken conversation with Susan and he's like, you guys have really been dealt a bad hand, haven't you? And Susan's like, well, we don't really see it like that. And he's like, come on, Be honest, you've really had a really bad deal here with Eliza. And Susan was like, we don't see it like that, but that's what other people think. Initially, like I said, there's a period of adjustment where people would say, I'm so sorry, what's happened to you? And we'd say, oh, it's fine, and thank you. And then we'd actually get annoyed. We wouldn't change her for anything. She's perfect just the way she is. It's just a different experience. So going back to your question, for me, there was a real peace that came with that episode, which really helped me.
But then it's also the mindset. You were already there in that space where that it's going to be okay, and to have that belief that she has everything within her, like you said, that I'm fine. You heard her imagine that I'm fine, I can take care of myself.
And yeah, she doesn't know what she hasn't got. She's got Eliza's experience. She's got everyone running around after her doing it. She's got a great life. Now, I will say, I feel we're very privileged to be able to, because it's hard for us. We're still together. We're married. We have resources to get people to help. In England, we had a lot of help early on, and it's still hard. For people who are like single mums with no family near them or whatever, they say it takes a village to raise a child. It takes at least a village, maybe more, to raise a child like Eliza. And I have to acknowledge that, because I just don't know. It's like for a single mum. Single mums are heroes anyway, but to have a child that is so demanding nonstop with no respite is superhero.
I know that it takes a toll. It affects other kids because of the time and commitment that somebody like Eliza requires, that constant care. Other kids can get ignored. And you guys have done such an amazing job of just giving all of them that same.
We're all better. The truth is, we're all better because of Eliza. Emily wrote a paper the other day for college about growing up with a daughter like Eliza and how she's changed and the impact on her. The kids are kinder and more attentive, the boys, Leon and Louie, who are younger than they would have been otherwise. So
they came after.
We're all better.
Yeah, after her. And
and
I just see them together, and they're happy together. They have found their rhythm. It's just so joyful to watch them together. But you guys have definitely done an amazing job as parents.
Oh, thank you. I'll tell Susan that, because she often, doesn't always feel that.
Oh, she's an amazing mom. I can't tell you how much I admire her as a mother, and how often I've not probably said that to her or to you, but I don't talk about you. I talk about her.
Yeah.
She takes care of her, and because I've seen her, she's the primary caregiver.
Yeah. And Emily as well. Emily says Eliza's her favorite person in the world. She wants to come back to see her siblings, which is really lovely. She's at college to want to come back.
I think Susan is my hero. The amount of patience, care, and nurturing that she has towards all her kids. I remember the first time we were over at your place for dinner, and she was seeking attention and Emily was there, and both she and Susan were trying. But then comes, I can't remember if it was Leon or Louis. I can't remember, but one of them.
Leon, probably.
Probably Leon. And he comes, and he needed, and I just remember Susan taking him in her arms and just giving him such a nice, warm hug, and just holding him. And on the side, Eliza's thing is going on, and there's all that. But
it's chaos all the time.
And she balancing both of them at the same time, two kids needing attention at the same time, and one probably can comprehend it far better than the other. But regardless of that, she could have told Leon that, can you wait, or let me take, but she didn't do that. And I was just so amazed at her ability to balance.
Yeah. Mums have special skills, special powers, I think.
Yeah. So how do you look back at all, Roddy, at 57 from your... We'll forget that. Let's cut that out.
Yeah, so I think there's definitely different chapters. I feel as I get older, and I felt this for about since probably soon after, probably mid-20s, probably for 30 years, I felt like I enjoy getting older. Life gets better the older I get. Up until about the last 5 years, where life gets better, like psychologically or mentally. I understand more, I understand me more, I understand people more. So, but my body is slowly like letting me down now. So I can't always do what I want to do. Like I have to stretch, and then I've got a bulging disc and my shoulders won't allow me to go weight training and do all the exercises that I used to do. And so you have to adapt to body changing, but still keep fit, still cycle 60 or 100 miles a week or something on an e-bike, not a regular bike, but still a good workout if you go for it. Yeah.
No, you're pretty fit. Coming back to that, what would have been the consequence to holding on to your fear, to that mindset, to what kind of a life you would have had you held on to it, and having adapted and changed your mindset, your thinking, and what you've built for yourself? That huge contrast that I see.
Yeah, so I was obsessively driven once I started working. And so I would have been, and my parents drank a lot, all my friends. It's different in England. But we drank a lot. Our family drank a lot. So it was a big part of life. So I would have been a workaholic and retired probably at 55 or something, and then been a jolly drunk. Just like having lived a corporate kind of life, I suppose, so I could see that probably would have been where it had gone if I hadn't decided to change it. But it was that this is okay, but there's got to be more to life. Like I didn't feel satisfied. The relentless like politicking in big organizations, like it's not healthy. I don't think most organizations don't have great leaders. And that makes for, I think, it's great to have a job, don't get me wrong.
Is there a particular, like the culture that you're talking about in organization, is there a particular behavior that organizations unintentionally reward?
I'm a compassionate capitalist, I describe myself as. So I feel like I'm very driven, the increased results. I'm not sure how it works where everyone does the best they can and we all get paid equally. It doesn't make sense to me. I don't think that's how you get the best out of people. So to your point, in the banking industry, I was supporting teams of people, supporting the whole bank, the bonds, equities, floors, private banking, extremely high demanding environments where people are trading all around and the slightest little thing goes wrong and there's no tolerance or empathy really, or very little. Foreign exchange traders are not patient people. And a part of that, I think, is because also the culture, it's probably changed now. It's probably healthier than it was 20, 30 years ago. But results are rewarded. And so I think there's a lot of backstabbing, there's a lot of politics, there's a lot of castle building or silo building. Bonuses are great, share options, and the money is great when everything's going well. And so however you get results, you get rewarded financially. And it doesn't, I'm sure there's worse environments to work in, but it's not what I felt like life was all about. I wanted something different.
Is it changing? You work with leaders of so many organizations.
I think a lot of the same things still exist. Yeah, we've done a lot of work in South America with John Maxwell, Argentina and Panama and Dominican Republic. Talk about building relationship with your team. That is the big thing, I think. A line manager is the company to the people that report to them. So they need to build a relationship with them. They need to go to them and to work on that relationship and accept that their job is to get the best out of them and to help them do a great job. Yeah. It's not easy to do. And in South America, people would say to me, yeah, but you don't understand. Here in South America, it's very positional based. It's different. I said, it's not different. It's the same in America. It's the same in England as well. So trying to create that environment where people want to give more of themselves, I think is the key. But I think it's still too rare. And particularly for revenue earners where they can get commission, it's easy to have that direct report, but it still creates the wrong behaviors, I think. I don't know if there's an easy way around it.
Yeah, the relationship building, right? It's about
exactly.
Getting the best out of your employee does impact the overall the ROI of the company
everyone.
And your bonus. Because
your bonus it's good for the company, it's good for the boss, it's good for the individual because they're growing, it's good for the customers. There's no downside. There's no downside to it.
There's no downside. I think more talk needs to happen, more awareness, and people really need to understand the power that lies behind that.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes a big difference. It makes a big difference. We used to do like 20 plus years ago engagement surveys. I know it's still important and Gallup does a great job of championing this, but we would have one. There was 60,000 employees for the last company I worked for around the world, and we would do this engagement survey. And we got average results. And I decided I wanted to do something else. So I said to my boss, I want to go and be a speaker. I want to have my own business. I want to have my own clients. And he said, I think that's a terrible idea. And I said, well, I know you'd say that, but I really feel like there's more. And eventually he said, okay, here's the deal. You find a replacement for you. You train them up. You hand everything over to them. You make sure that everything works faultlessly and convince me that everything's going to be okay. Then you can leave and we'll look after you at the end. And so I said, okay, it's a deal. I'll do that. There was one big property dispute, which ended up going to the Court of Appeal, which is the highest court in England, in London. It was a lot of money and no one would take that over, which I was dealing with. So I had to see that through to the end, but everything else I handed over. So I had very little to do for the last 12, 18, almost 24 months. And so I would start going and sitting with people in my team. So I'd sit with my direct reports, but we would have breakfast once a week anyway, and we'd do little speaker training sessions and everyone would present. And so we had a good relationship. But then I'd go and talk to their direct reports, so my indirect reports, and I'd go and sit with the people on reception. I'd go and sit with the people in the security. I'd go and sit with the people looking after the building, the maintenance guys. I'd go and sit with hospitality, IT security, all of these different places. And I'd just spend my time chatting to them. And so this went on for a couple of years. During this process, one of the engagement surveys came out. And so the engagement survey was filled out and went off. I didn't think anything more of it. And then when the results came back, we were at the top bracket for the whole organization, 60,000 employees, right at the very top, because the people felt the company cared. Now, it was a good company to work for. The company always cared. But if no one showed them that the company cared, then they didn't feel that the company cared. And so by going around and saying, oh, what are you working on? What are you doing? Just killing time and then getting to know them and then genuinely liking them made all the difference to the way they felt. So it's a powerful reminder, I suppose.
It is. Absolutely.
Yeah, but the thing is, I felt like I was working really hard 15 years before that, but that was doing nothing for all of the people in my organization, or at least they didn't realize it, or they didn't see it. But when you actually go and talk to them, one human being to another, that's what they feel.
I think that makes such a huge difference because they need to know, they need to tangibly know that somebody cares for them. And
it's not enough to care. You've got to demonstrate it continually so they feel it. Then it counts.
So, Roddy, what's next for you? Is there something that you have planned for yourself?
So I'm working on a book at the moment, which is heavily influenced by John Maxwell because he's made a big impact on me and been mentored personally by him as well, has made a huge difference on my perspective of speaking. So the book is about how you can earn influence with your audience. And it's based on different layers of influence gradually building. And it's made up out of 27 secrets, which are like I know everyone says secrets, but they're counterintuitive, which is why I'm calling them secrets. So there's a myth that everyone believes, like the myth of the natural speaker. And then there's the truth, which is that there's no such thing as a natural speaker. You can learn to develop. So I'm working on that. The more I'm working on it, I'm enjoying it. And I'm also working with my daughter, Amelie, who's doing a lot of the writing as I put together the ideas and different stories. And then she's wordsmithing it. It's very philosophical in that it's about being a good person and using communication for good, not for ill, and building up layer upon layer so that you're connecting with your audience. That's one of the transitions. So the 27 secrets are made up out of 7 transitions. One of the transitions is connecting with your audience, then building credibility with your audience, then building trust with your audience, then building an experience that they can enjoy, and then moving up to mastery. I thought it was going to be a quick speaking secrets book of techniques, but it's become more of a philosophy of being a good person, really, in the context of speaking. So I'm really enjoying that.
Wow.
By the end of the summer, I would hope that it will be done. Yeah.
I look forward to it.
Good.
Yeah. So my last question, what would be that one advice or suggestion that you would share with our audience? How can they realize that the conditioning or the belief, the mindset that they have is really their own or somebody else's, or is it that mindset that is affecting their life?
Yeah, so Jung said that until we make the unconscious conscious, it will rule our life, and we will call it fate. I think that's so true for me as I look back. He put into words exactly what I experienced. There's all of these programs running our life. Because the thing with beliefs is we believe them. And so we don't question them because we believe them. Why would we question the truth? But we've collected all of these beliefs over the years, and a lot of them when we were young from our childhood, and they're in our subconscious, which we're not holding in mind consciously. So there's all of these baggage that we've developed that is running our life, and we don't question it. And we think that's just me. That's just the way I am. That's just the way things are. That's the way people are. You fill in the whatever it is that's holding you back. And so I feel that is good in many ways, because we come into the world blank slate, not completely blank. I think there's some conditioning that happens in the womb, but largely we've got our genetic inheritance, but then we've got a lot of programming that goes on, and it enables us to adapt and to be a product of our environment, which is good. Thank goodness. Not learning to do everything anew every time we wake up in the morning. So we've gathered a lot of knowledge about what it takes for us to exist in this type of environment. But if you're not happy in that environment, i.e. you want more, then you got to realize that doing what you're currently doing and thinking the way you're currently thinking and feeling the way you're feeling and perceiving things the way you currently perceive them is not going to get you where you want to go. Now, you don't need to throw the baby out with the bathwater and say, that's it, I'm changing everything, or I don't believe in beliefs anymore. I want to be pure and unencumbered by any kind of a feeling tone as I go through life. That's not realistic. It's helpful, but some things are holding us back. And so if we can identify the things that are stopping us, and then we can go about changing them, then it can literally change our life. Simple example, I've always had dogs and always enjoyed walking them. And I always used to like fishing when I was young. So I'd walk along and I'd walk along the stream, and 100 yards ahead, 50 yards ahead, 20 yards ahead, I could see fish in the water. Because I've been doing my whole life, and you see the little signs, and it would be something in the scene tells me, without me consciously spotting, there's chub in the water there. And then I'd creep up ever so quietly and I could look at them, and as long as they don't see you, they stay there. And I'd walk with various people I'd take, and I'd say, oh, can you see the chub in the water? And they're like, where? What? Or a deer in the woods, just the ears or something that you just pick up on. And because of our passions and our interests, it's the way we've decided what's important and what is not important. And so our subconscious spots it and brings it into conscious awareness and says, there's one of those things that you like. So we shut out a whole load of stuff and we tune in to the things that we're emotionally involved with. So if you think about that principle, there's a whole load of things going on in everyone's life that we're filtering out because we haven't decided they're important, and probably a lot of them are not important. But there's some things in there, maybe some opportunities or some things that would really benefit us, and we're filtering them out and we need to tune into them. But the current you is not going to tune into them. So you have to change in order to be able to do that. And I think that's the process. So we don't need to change everything, but probably some things. I think thinking about what it is you want is a big way to get there. What is it that you want sufficiently that you're going to actually pursue it? Not, oh, I want $1 billion. You're going to have to work then. Oh, what's the point? That's not going to work. If there's things that you want, then they can entice you forward into growth. It probably makes people angry if we talk about infinite potential, but I don't mean it in a, you can become anything you want. If you pick a path, then you can keep growing on that path and you'll never run out of growth. Your growth is there for you to keep growing. And if you're growing, everything gets gradually better. So you can pick a direction and all you need to do is do your best. You cannot grow faster than doing your best. And you're not in competition with anyone else anyway. So you just need to do your best, pursue something that you want. You can't do everything. Start with one thing or start with something that's important. Get better at that process.
One thing that you want to do. I guess self-reflection is so important, especially in a world like how busy our lives are right now, just to take out that time to really think what is important and then figure out if we want to.
Yeah, because I think you've hit the nail on the head. I think we are busy, but we're busy on autopilot. We're busy on autopilot. We're not thinking about those things. We're just doing stuff. And when we pick something we want and then we measure it against those things, we realize that they're less important than this thing. And so now, and what we want to be doing on autopilot is working towards the things that actually we consciously choose.
I mean, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Just before your call, I was on another call and we were talking exactly that. I said, but I don't want that anymore in my life. I don't see any worth in me spending time on something that I don't want anymore. It was important to me 15 years back. It's no longer important to me. So why do I want to invest that time? It is still a part of my life, but now I'm intentionally choosing not to invest my energy into it and rather put that into something that I really want.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a myth that there's going to come a time when we've got loads of time where we can do all of these things. We're always using time for whatever it is that we're doing. And we need to stop doing things and do the things. And that's a conscious process in intentionally choosing that in order to have different things. Beautiful.
Yeah, so we did it. Thank you so much, Roddy. Thank you for your time.
My pleasure. Thank you. Yeah.
A lovely conversation. Yeah, me too. And very valuable. I came to know certain aspects of your life that I didn't know. So very valuable conversation for the times that we are in. So thank you.
Great. Yeah, thank you so much. It's been great to spend time with you.